Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to VU Sports Wired. I'm Jackson Martin. Alongside me is Kristen Schiff. We have a lot to talk about in the world of Vanderbilt sports today, so let's get to it. Starting off, we're going to talk about the loss to #1 Kentucky in Memorial. Looking forward, the second half run that the Commodores made to get back in the game after a 13-point deficit. And then we'll talk about what the loss means for the Commodores as they go forward into the rest of conference play, especially with a big game against Ole Miss, who's undefeated at home coming up. After that, we're going to talk about the women's basketball team, who had a big win over Tennessee last week, but it was mired by a loss against Georgia and a really tough game with Kentucky coming up. After that, it is almost baseball season. The team opens against Stanford this weekend, and then we're going to talk about, can the boys return to Omaha, where they made it to the College World Series last year. So let's get to it. Starting off with that loss to #1 Kentucky, Kristen, what happened, and especially in that first half, how did the team get so far down?
Well, you see that Kentucky came out with a lot of energy. You know, they're not playing at home. This was our game to lose. They're at our home court. You know, we have Memorial Magic going on. Just really got off to a slow start. You see that John Jenkins came out shooting pretty cold. Our offense wasn't going. We had trouble executing in the half court. So I think that was one of the biggest problems coming out. And you saw what that did. We went into halftime with just a huge deficit to face.
Yep. Even the thrill of having college game day here in Memorial couldn't sustain the Commodores as they worked their way through that first part of the game. As we said, got to a 13-point halftime deficit. A lot of turnovers early on. Festus Ezeli started out the game just 1 of 5 shooting. Kentucky pressured the ball early, and the Commodores backed off and tried to let Marquise Teague beat them. Unfortunately, in the first half, he did. But in the second half, the Commodores were able to make a big comeback, taking a lead with as few as 4 minutes left in the game, but couldn't sustain it as they couldn't score in that last 4 minutes. But at least to me, it says a lot that that team was able to come back, and it says more to me that they were able to get back in that game than whether or not they won or lost.
Yeah, and you see, too, facing that kind of Kentucky team, a huge offense. You have players on that team, a lot of young talent, and so many draft picks. Kid Gilchrist, Anthony Davis, they're going to be gone soon. This is a very young Kentucky team. It says a lot about, you know, the strength of this Commodore team, being able to rebound against the #1 team in the country. So many people thought we were going to lose the game by a long shot, and the fact that we hung in there until the last 4 minutes when we let a 2-point lead slip away, that says a lot about our team.
Right, and we see, I think, this team moving more towards being Jeff Taylor's team than it's been in the past. He dominated Kid Gilchrist, only let him score 4 points, racked up 3 fouls on Kid Gilchrist early on, and then just kept driving, kept getting to the hoop. It was a great game from Jeff Taylor, who was kind of shocking, only scored 13 points in the game. But a loss is a loss, even if it is to the #1 team in the country. So now we have to ask, what does the loss mean going forward for the seeding for the Commodores moving forward?
Yeah, you would like to think that playing the #1 team in the country this close would do a lot for the program, but as you know, so many of the coaches always say, there are no moral victories in basketball this close to the postseason. We have SEC tournament coming up. Seedings are just right around the corner. So I think that this loss puts us at an 18-7 record on the season, probably about a 7 seed right now.
Right, and Joe Renardi of ESPN does have us penciled in as a 7 seed. Last week, Commodores were a 6 seed, so even playing the #1 team doesn't keep you from moving down. But with a big game coming up against Ole Miss, the Commodores do have a chance to rectify that. But it's an Ole Miss team that's probably a lot tougher than most Vanderbilt fans think. They are undefeated at home so far, which is unfortunately where the Commodores are going to have to face them in Oxford.
Yeah, and you've seen a lot of our struggles have been on the road right now. We've had a tough time closing games. So the fact that we're playing an Ole Miss team that, you know, heading into the postseason as a bubble team, they're often you know, overlooked by a lot of analysts. So this is going to be a good game for us to test how well we've, you know, progressed throughout the season.
And like you said, an Ole Miss team that is on the bubble looking for that one signature win that could cement their status as being in the NCAA tournament. And that win could come against us or against Kentucky later in the week. So Rebels obviously with a tough stretch, but they're a team that can certainly pull off either of those wins. Now, the women's basketball team had a big victory last weekend, defeating the Tennessee Volunteers by more than 10 points, one of the biggest wins for the team in recent history. However, Saturday, a loss to Georgia, also a ranked team, kind of brought that down. Congress have another tough game coming up when they travel to Kentucky to face the Lady Wildcats, who are undefeated in Lexington.
Yeah, and Coach Balcom has really talked a lot about two keys for Vanderbilt's success. They need to rebound and prevent turnovers.
Right.
We saw Jasmine Lister do a great job controlling the point in the Tennessee game. Unfortunately, when they played Georgia, 13 first-half turnovers compared to 15 the entire game against Tennessee.
Yeah.
Coach Balcom obviously expressed her disappointment in the way her team played. Now, when you look ahead to Kentucky, you can't make those kind of mistakes. They are an SEC team.
Yep.
They run the ball fast. That's something Vanderbilt has trouble with. If they can't establish a half-court offense, they're going to struggle throughout the game, and Kentucky's really going to challenge them on defense.
Right, and something that may be a little bit of a positive sign, this Kentucky team did get blown out by Tennessee just yesterday, actually. But so a big series for the women as they move forward, trying to get back into that top 25 and trying to improve their seeding in the NCAA tournament as well. Now, another team that's having a lot of success here, the baseball team, they're going to open up play with a series at Stanford this weekend. Your Commodores, of course, number 10 preseason ranked by Baseball America. However, picked to finish 4th in the SEC East by the SEC baseball coaches. So obviously a very tough SEC for this team to get through, even after all that talent that they lost from last year, having 12 players drafted in the MLB draft.
Yeah, and you saw the rankings when we finished up the season last year.
Yeah.
3 SEC teams in the top 3.
Yeah.
Now that you add Arkansas to the mix, who's
Yeah.
also atop the conference preseason rankings right now.
Yeah.
This is going to be an uphill battle for the
Right.
Vanderbilt team. They are very young with their starting pitching rotation. The pitcher with the most experience is only a sophomore. Kevin Zomek saw 6 starts last season. So losing all their depth in the pitching rotation, it's going to be a challenge for them.
And we see, as we start to get a better sense of who is going to be in that pitching rotation, someone that we hadn't quite seen before, Dave Verhagen. I'm sorry. He's a transfer. He was originally at Oklahoma, transferred to junior college. Last year, he won the junior college national championship. Now it's looking like he's going to be a fixture in that Vanderbilt rotation, along with Kevin Zomek. So obviously a much younger team when last year the strength was very much the pitching staff. This year going to have to rely more on those field players, your SEC Freshman of the Year and Tony Kemp and the like to propel this team maybe back to Omaha in the College World Series.
Yeah, and I actually had the opportunity to talk to senior catcher Drew Fan today, and I asked him, how are you going to be able to follow up your success from last year? You made your first ever College World Series appearance, and he said, we're still going into the season with the same mindset that we are going to win games. We will be back in Omaha, he told me. He says that although they are inexperienced on the mound, they bring a lot of depth to the outfield. You have 3 individuals that are coming back in the outfield, all starters from last year, and their middle infield is also grounded. So
returning all 3 outfield starters, returning your 2 middle infield guys. Conrad Gregor is going to move over from DH to first baseman, but returning a lot of talent on this Vanderbilt team. And even though it's a tough conference, I think we'll see, particularly in the non-conference schedule, just how good this Vanderbilt team is moving forward, and maybe getting that return trip to Omaha. But now I guess it's time for us to wrap it up here on VU Sports Wired. So for Chris and Chef, I'm Jackson Martin. Thanks for watching.